G'day Bomber fans. So I was at my desk last night twiddling my thumbs, not sure what to make a video about, and then I thought I may as well get you guys to send me through some questions, and you did. It is a quick smart Q&A today, and by quick smart I mean very slow and lots of yapping. It's all about the trade and draft. Cheers for your questions. I couldn't get through all of them. I actually recorded this about an hour or two after putting the post out anyway, so there's going to be plenty that I missed. Thank you for your questions. Let's get right into it. Alrighty, let's start with a question from Campbell. It is about the Fiorini trade. So what does a deal for Fiorini and the pick swap with the Suns look like? And is there potential for this to drag out, given the Suns will want to keep their draft hand flexible when trading for Petrarca? So this has already dragged out a bit longer than it should have, really, because it's a simple trade. It's really Fiorini for a later pick and maybe a third round pick. And I think the reason it's dragged out is because both teams involved don't want to be throwing away selections for the 2025 draft. Both teams have to match bids on academy players, the Suns more so than us. And something I talked about in my last trade update was the fact that Gold Coast would, in an ideal world, have a clear idea as to what they need to give away in a Petrarca deal. And the last thing they want to be happening is picks swapped around, where they may need for Petrarca. So there are a few things halting this one a bit. The Bombers want to be giving away future picks for Fiorini. They have either a future third or fourth or both on the table. But Gold Coast want 2025 capital, so it's just stalled a little bit. I'm still really confident it gets done. Like this should get done with later picks. I've seen some rumors that there is a big pick swap being planned. I think Gold Coast would probably rather this deal just gets done so they can focus on other bigger trades. I think we're going to see it get done pretty soon, either with a future selection or a third rounder in this draft. Either way, it's going to happen. Liam Pickering, Fiorini's manager, said the holdup was because of squabbling for late picks. It seems like both these teams are trying to get the best deal possible, which is good, but it'll get done. A question from Jigsaw straight off the set of Saw 10. Do I think the Merrett trade gets done? So I think the Fiorini one gets done. This one, I said the whole way through, I personally don't think it does. It definitely can. I think it's more likely a deal can't be worked out, though. It's maybe sitting at like 60-40 or even 70-30 that he stays, maybe for me, maybe 60-40. Still a bit of a toss-up, but the way I see it, with the club going all out saying we won't trade him, it's very strong messaging. It would look very silly to backflip on that and let him go. And that's why I actually like this strategy, because it means if we do trade him, it has to be in a situation that we're winning from. The only way the board are going to tick off this trade is if the Bombers come out of the deal looking better. And I just don't think Hawthorn or other clubs are willing to give up heaps and heaps before Tassie enter the mix. I think the club holds him to his contract. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get a good deal from it and the Hawks pay up and we get a huge bonus. But my gut feel is that he's with the club next year. I just think it is too tough to get a trade done. And just going off that a little bit more, we've got a few questions about what a trade could look like for Merrett. Meme Minister asks if Gresham or Perkins or another player could be sent to Hawthorn. That's not going to happen. Hawthorn want Merrett, and adding other players to it will just complicate the deal even more. I do like the thinking, though, trying to get rid of players where you can. Bolognese Detective Basil Hammett, awesome name. They ask if a three-way deal can get the trade done. And yeah, I think if a trade is done, there would probably be another club involved, probably a club with a top 10 pick. So, you're looking at Carlton, Gold Coast. I think they're busy with other trades. Maybe Sydney. I think they've got one in the top 10 or close to it. Andrew's got a few questions. What would it take for the board to agree for a trade? And I guess the other two are kind of linked in with that, because the way I see it, and I said this before, if I'm on the Essendon board, I think, you're looking at a trade which would benefit the Bombers more than the Hawks. And that's the way that you tick it off. A trade that looks better for the Bombers than it does for Hawthorn. Good thing I'm not on the board, because that would be stressful trying to think of what trade would work. But I'd be saying no unless the Bombers get, both a chance at drafting incredible talent, so early picks, or a chance at getting early picks, or a young player with upside. I've said Cam Mackenzie, that's the guy I'm looking at, not only because I think he has upside, because I think he's also a realistic option in this trade. He ended the year in the VFL, and that kind of goes with your third question as well, about a midfielder who's an excellent kick, because that is Mackenzie. He's not overly physical. If we wanted physical, Henry Hustwaite's probably the better option, but I think Mackenzie and his ball use is more of a gift right now, given the fact that there are some big bodies available in the draft and not a lot of good ball users in the draft. You've got, Ollie Greaves, Robey, Dyson Sharp, Sam Swadling, all really good contest mids, whereas if I'm thinking good kicks, I'm looking at Josh Lindsay, and probably that's about it. Maybe Jacob Farrow too. So yeah, I think if this trade gets done, Essendon are either getting multiple high selections in the draft, or multiple first rounders and a promising player. It's not just about picks. Like you can say 3 first rounders gets the trade done, but we already have a good hand. We don't need more first rounders. It's about optics and what the trade could get you. You know, if this trade can unlock a move to go up the order for Willem Duursma, then you know, that's a big yes. You know, Duursma for Merrett plus more, or it gives us a quality young player from another club, plus picks. That's how you get the deal done. Otherwise, I don't think it will. Hank Schrader or Mineral Collector asks if Butters requests a trade this year, would you facilitate a trade now or hold off until he is a free agent? And then he talks about the cost of Butters with picks. Yeah, even if you wanted to join Essendon this year, I'd probably rather hit the draft. And look, his age is good. I get the appeal, but I mean, and also I guess a Merrett trade would probably change that. Like if we get picks for Merrett plus Butters, that's an incredible off-season. But I think maybe it's because it's unrealistic, but it just won't happen. Like he's staying at Port for the year. They'd be silly to trade him away. I know people always say, you know, he will leave for less next year as a free agent, so you may as well trade him now. But that doesn't always happen. Like quite often players will seek a trade and then the next year they'll realise they don't want one anymore. Tom Papley is a really good example of that. Everyone thought he was going to Carlton, but he is still at Sydney about 5 or 6 years later. So yeah, Port are doing the right thing by holding on to him. And if he was available for a trade, I think I'd still rather attack him as a free agent. I think they're probably doing the right thing by waiting until his free agency year and getting him then when we don't have to be giving away picks, because we want picks. We're in a rebuild. We need to be hitting the draft. Jezelenko and Jet ask about what the best outcome or result for Essendon this off-season is. I think it's really just about planning for the future. You know, like I said before, not giving away picks for great players, giving away multiple picks in the draft. We're not going to be using those high selections for any big fish. The Bombers will be looking at what we can bring in over the draft in the next year or two to ensure we've got enough talent on our list for when Tasmania enter the comp. That's the big thing. You know, we obviously want to get better for 2026, but we need to think about, you know, getting better for 2027 and 2028 when there is a brand new team in the competition taking away all the talent in the draft. Now, in an ideal world where we're getting a trade done for Merrett and just we're getting a lot back in return, I think that would be a great outcome for the club. If not, we're still in a strong position in the draft. And just on that, Jet asks if we go into the draft with the same hand that we have now, what the best outcome would be. That's, I guess, if we're not trading up for Duursma. I mean, if we're holding on to picks 5 and 6, we're hopefully getting our hands on Xavier Taylor and Sullivan Robey. And if not, you know, both of them, then maybe a Josh Lindsay in there. Those are my 3 favourites in that range. And I mean, this won't happen. Pick 21 will probably get traded away, but you guys know that I like Harley Barker. I'd be using that on him. He's probably around in that range too. Speaking of Robey and Taylor, they are popular options in this draft. There are plenty of questions about them. To sum all this up, really, I love both these guys. I think in an ideal world, Essendon walk away with them as back-to-back picks. I would love Duursma. And again, a Merrett trade would probably unlock a trade up the order for Duursma along with these guys. But if we just hold on to picks 5 and 6 like we have now, we would be incredibly lucky to get both Xavier Taylor and Sullivan Robey in. And there wouldn't be a huge chance that there would be a huge chance that we get at least one of them. I think one of them's probably gone earlier. Like the Tigers like Xavier Taylor, I've heard. Sullivan Robey, he could go really early. We don't know. The fact that he's bolted so high, it's hard to really judge where he is. He's a little bit less trustworthy than Taylor, even if he does have awesome upside. As Meme Minister says, you know, Robey is a slight risk because he is less proven. But I think of the big-bodied mids, he is the one I like the most. And yeah, I think a top 5 pick is worth it on either of them. You know, if I'm ranking the open draft, players in the open draft, and this might be a spoiler for my upcoming whiteboard video, but I would have Robey and Taylor in my top 3 right after Willem Duursma. That is purely open draft players. So, you know, if you're looking at trading up the order for Duursma, obviously great, but picks 5 and 6 on Robey and Taylor would be awesome. I don't know if it happens. Just quickly from Lucas, so where would Robey be last draft? I mean, I'm looking at Josh Smiley, who was taken at pick 7, but that's partly because of the year Smiley had. It is tough to judge drafts because we've seen, you know, players from last year's draft have an impact this year. Even Murphy Reed in the later stages, he's probably, you know, taken quite high in this year's draft, but he wasn't even taken high in last year's draft. And also from Lucas, why have Lindsay and Cumming dropped in the rankings? So I think Cumming is mainly due to that injury keeping him out of footy. He's well inside that top 15 still. Lindsay's a funny one. So he's an elite kick, best in the draft. There's there's not a lot else to his game, and I think clubs have started to realise that. I still think he's great, and I'd love the Bombers to take him. After Robey and Taylor, he'd be the one I want next. But yeah, those two, it's Robey and Taylor, that would just be the dream. You'd get 2 Eastern Rangers teammates. It would improve the culture. Robey's an Essendon fan as well, by the way. That would be fun. But yeah, we'll see. The great Rick Edwards comes in with another top talent in the draft. Where do you think Koby Duff-Tytler will go in the draft, and what are his strengths and weaknesses? So first part, I'd be shocked if he's available for our pick 5. I think if West Coast don't take him with pick 2, Richmond will take him with pick 3 or 4. Now, he's pretty clearly one of the very best talents in this draft. Duursma's 1, but CDT is right in the mix to be, 2. The only way Essendon get him is if we trade up. And the second part of that question, and this is really interesting, so weakness, I think... I don't even know if it's a weakness. I think I'm going to call it a downside, but I think it's the main downside with Koby Duff-Tytler for me is the fact that he's a ruckman. You know, you look at rucks who have been taken in the draft previously. I can't even think of one that's been taken in the top 5. I can remember Ethan Reid taken in the top 10, but aside from that, how often do you see a ruck taken this early in the draft? Because I'd even go as far as to say ruck is the easiest position to find a hidden gem in, and it's because they take longer to develop. You know, you usually see them come good around the 19 to 20 to 21-year-old mark. So whereas spending a top 5 pick on a midfielder is always a risk because you're spending a top 5 pick, you'd at least have a good idea as to where their ceiling is. But with a ruckman, you don't have a clue. Like, you only really know how they're properly tracking a solid 2 to 3 years into their AFL career. Even look at Vigo Vicentini. We took him in the rookie draft. He showed signs in his first year, didn't do heaps, and then all of a sudden he starts dominating VFL games out of nowhere. Sam Draper is another one. We took him as a Category B rookie, and he's just gone off to Brisbane on a 5 or 6 year contract on almost $1 million a year. So clubs know that you can find good rucks not just from high picks in the draft. It's actually, if anything, more common to get a good ruck in the late stages of the draft. So, you know, West Coast, Richmond, Essendon will be asking the question if he is worth the risk, if he is worth an early pick. And, I mean, I think so. I think with ruck rules changing to favour mobility and athleticism, CDT is one of the best at this early age. He is so athletic for his size. He's so good around the ground. I don't even really rate his stoppage work much, but that's a good negative to have because stoppage work is going to be reducing with rule changes. I think it's what he does around the ground that makes him such a top talent. Obviously, even with that, it's still a huge risk to draft him because of his position. You know, there are some other high-quality names around in this draft. Even if he gets to our pick at, 5 and 6, let's say we've got CDT, Robey, and Xavier Taylor available to take at picks 5 and 6. I mean, I think CDT is a better prospect for the future than those other two, but I wouldn't even mind if the club went for those other two, just because it's scary. That's what it is. It's scary, having a ruckman that high up because we haven't really had it much before at all. So, yeah, I think the main downside to CDT is his position, funnily enough. Gilby asks if we are guaranteed to be getting Koby Bewick as a father-son. The short answer is no. Unfortunately, we don't even know what the rules that the AFL are bringing in to restrict the access is for academy and father-son players. The way it's looking, it's likely to just be really hard to get your hands on father-sons and academy players. So, for example, this year, Brisbane can throw away a bunch of second-round picks to match a bid on Dan Annable very early in the draft. The way the rules will change, if Koby Bewick is in the same stage of the draft as Annable in 2027, which is, top 5, it would likely cost Essendon 2 first-round picks to match a bid, which is, a lot more than it currently is. It'd be higher picks too, which obviously is harder to get a hold of. So yeah, because of that, it is hard to guarantee anything, but the club will be preparing for this. And I'd be surprised if we don't have everything ready to match a bid for when it comes in 2027. He's a very talented player, young Koby. We can't guarantee anything this far out from that draft, especially with Tasmania coming in, but I'd be guessing it's a yes for him being in the red and black. I wouldn't worry about that too much. I would probably worry a bit more about whether or not we can bring in Bewick alongside Mustafa Darwish and Tavita Roden, who are also linked to the club. That seems a lot tougher to get done. I think that's the way the rules should be, though. It's probably fair to complain that we haven't had the access to these high-end players, that Gold Coast and Brisbane have before the rules change. But I think it makes sense for you to have access to these players, but make it a lot harder for you to actually match bids on them. I think that's trending towards a fairer draft. Now, speaking of NGA bid matching, so Taylor and Campbell ask if it is a guarantee for the Bombers to be taking both Adam Swade and Hussein El Achkar in this draft, and I would say that's a little bit tough to confirm. So I guess we'll have a good idea after the trade period, because we'll know what picks we have, how many list spots we have. It'll be a lot easier to tell once everything's been sorted out. We haven't even made a trade this year, so it's tough to know now. And the club haven't yet committed to Suede and LH Carr. We obviously have to get capital to match those bids, for some later trades, and that's just not the priority for the club right now, given we're deep into player trades. If I had to guess, I'd say that Essendon takes Suede, and Hassane's maybe a bit more up in the air than that. You got guys like Lockie Dollison around. If he's available for a pick, do the Bombers take him instead and bail on Huss? Maybe the Bombers want to trade up those picks in the 20s to get players in the teens, and those players in the teens are better prospects than Huss and Suede, who'd go in the 20 to 30 range. I'm going to guess both of them are at the club. I think the value of NGA picks is too good to pass on right now. But let's say, they're available in next year's draft when restrictions come in. That would be a different story. And that, again, that's what I was saying before. That's the way the draft should be. Next year, you'd really have to decide on whether you want these academy kids or not. This year, it probably still makes more sense with the current leaner restrictions to just take them both if a bid comes at a reasonable time. So yeah, the Bombers, they're yet to commit to both of them. It's probably still leaning towards them both joining the club. Are we a chance of having 3 Duursmas at the club next season? It is a big no from me, unless Yasmin wants to join the club and we trade up for Willem. But unfortunately, Zane isn't going anywhere. He is staying at North Melbourne. That trade is not going to happen. Maybe, maybe 2 Duursmas. Maybe we trade up for Willem. But having all 3 brothers just doesn't look possible at all for 2026. I would rule a big fat line through that. Maybe next year's trade period, Zane Duursma is out of contract then. But this year, it is a big old no. I would love it. It'd be super fun, but it's a no from me. Brian and Chris know the way to my heart. We have a couple of Harley Barker questions in. I like both of them. Brian asks what his draft position is and whether we're a chance at getting him. Chris asks a very good question. Now that Fiorini is in, do I still want Barker? The answer is a big yes. I will always want Barker on the list. Now, if we're being real, there are definitely players in this draft that I prefer over Barker. I just think his value is fantastic, and I wouldn't want the club using an early pick on him. I wouldn't want, pick 5 or 6 being used on Barker, especially with that knee injury. But if we gain another selection in the teens, which we definitely could, I would love to see him drafted. He's probably, to answer the first question, in that 20s range on draft night. Maybe, late teens at the highest, but probably more likely to be mid to late 20s. And even with Fiorini there, I think the way I see it, Barker will take a bit of time to get over that knee. He's going to take time to really grow into a proper player anyway. I think it'd be good to have some friendly competition there with Fiorini. And it's not like we're giving up the world for Fiorini anyway. In fact, if anything, it would be good to have, a kid come in and take his spot in a year or two. I really like Harley Barker. You guys would know that. And if we get a pick in the teens, I am eyeing that off as the Harley Barker pick. I'm going to be calling Matt Rosa every morning, telling him to take Harley Barker. Would the club draft him over others? Probably not, realistically. But I'm going to hold out hope until draft night for it to happen. Calvin asks if there are any guys later in the draft that I'm interested in that aren't spoken about. And you nailed one of them here with your suggestions. Max Kondagiannis, I really like him a lot. There is value in that selection. He could be, second or even third or fourth round. But if we do have a late pick, which I doubt we do, but he would be a name I would look out for the defense. A mature one to look out for is Latrell Sumner-Pickett. He's probably in that second round. He's an excitement machine, this guy, mature ager. But no, I think with our draft, I think it's more likely that we do all our work early anyway. We're going to, have some selections in the first round, maybe match some bids, and then that'd be it till the rookie draft. I think if I'm thinking that, I'm looking at the guys who clubs could gloss over in the national draft, and maybe they'll end up later in the rookie draft. Archer Day Wicks last year, this is the same thinking. When the national draft ended, I was looking at Archer Day Wicks' name in the rookie draft. Maybe this year it's a Blake Odeshawn-Benier. I think he's great. I like the upside of a Xavier Bammett or a Hunter Holmes, players with lots of outside run. Maybe Roy Wright probably goes a bit earlier. His foot skills are too good. Mature ager is Rod Ali, a tiny bit older, but I like him as a future talent, definitely more of a rookie pick. Yeah, it's not a very deep draft, but there are definitely going to be some steals in the late stages. There always are in every draft. You could even bring in Tom McGuan just to annoy Collingwood fans. I'll probably put a few more videos out. Realistically, I'll probably cover every prospect, so stay tuned for that to hear more about the bargain options. There'd definitely be a few around. Someone actually I want to talk about who's, I guess it kind of it's a bargain option, but it's more of a bargain option early in the draft. But I'll talk about him a bit in my whiteboard video too coming up. But Blake Threadgold from South Australia, if we do get another first rounder in, I wouldn't be surprised if the club look at him as a draft option. We're lacking key defenders. Threadgold is one of the very best in this draft crop. I think he's a lot better than what people make him out to be. I like this thinking from Talia and whatever that name is. It's about the 2026 draft. There's a lot of draft questions in this video. This one's about next year. They both ask if we should be making making plays for the 2026 draft? And I think it's a big yes. I think 2026 is a better draft than this year. In an ideal world, we're adding to our picks for next year to attack some of those talented players while keeping our early selections this year. I don't think we should be doing it instead of 2025, like you say. I think we could be doing it as well as 2025. Even if we just add in like a second rounder for 2026 or first rounder for 2026, like it's still something. And some of the players next year that I really like, I like Marlon Neocleus, not a key position player like you want Talia. He's actually sub 170, I believe, but he's great. If you want key position, Dougie Cochran's great. Will Malady looks great too. I'm thinking Noah Williams, but again, he's not a key forward. He's a midfielder. Even like a Cody Templeton or an Archie Butler. Again, if we're looking at the tools, which is your question, I apologise. I'm thinking Dougie Cochran, Will Malady, Lewis Hounsome. You could even throw in like a Kobe Lacroix, even though he's more of a hybrid. There's some good talent for next year. I will put out some videos for the 2026 draft, and I do think the Bombers should be looking to add to it a bit. I think most clubs should be, to be honest. I don't know why it isn't happening more. And to finish off, we have 3 billion questions about trading up the draft order. So for starters, if the Bombers trade up the draft order from picks 5 and 6 up, it would be for Willem Duursma. I don't really think it makes sense to trade up the order and not go to pick 1. You know, I think there's value in picks 5 and 6, and if you're moving those picks on to get, you know, even 3 and 4, you're probably losing a bit too much out of the back end for that. You know, if maybe if it gets you Taylor and Robey, I wouldn't say no to that. If we get Richmond's picks, I'd probably rather those two players over a Willem Duursma anyway. But you know, if it's an Ollie Greaves and CDT, you know, at 5 and 6 like we have, I'd probably much rather have a Willem Duursma. So really, it's dependent on the available players for the picks. I personally don't think we're going to get a trade done for pick 1. It is so rare for clubs to trade that away, especially in a draft where there is clearly one player better than the rest, Willem Duursma. So yeah, if we're trading up, I'm going to say it's for pick 1, Willem Duursma. To answer quite a few of those questions though, it is probably worth more having multiple picks early than pick 1. Again, it all depends who's available, but it also depends on what capital we have to get a trade done. So if we get a Merrett deal done, if we have 3 or 4 first rounders, it makes sense to package a few away to move up somewhere. But as it stands right now, I think it makes more sense to be keeping those early picks, 5 and 6, and moving on some picks in the 20s to get into the teens, because I personally think there is real value there. In fact, there are probably players that we're eyeing off with picks 5 and 6 that may also be available at picks 14 or 15 for other clubs, which just speaks to the evenness of this draft. I reckon from pick 6 or 7 to 20, it is unbelievably even. You could argue there is more value having 3 picks in the 7 to 20 range than 2 picks in 5 to 6. So I'd hope we're trying to move up a tiny bit. But Darcy asks a good question. Can we turn those later picks into Carlton or Gold Coast first and match NGAs at the same time? And that's where the questions about the NGA matching earlier came in. You know, it's all connected. If we move up the order, trade up, it might affect our chances of getting both Swade and Huss through the doors. But the thing is, a pick in the teens is probably better than Huss anyway. So yeah, really good questions about trading up. Unfortunately, at this stage, it is really tough to know what the best thing to do is. As to, you know, it's also tough to know how a trade could look for 5 and for pick 1 going up. I think 5 and 6 would be packaged with later picks to get up to pick 1, but that is a lot to give up. And I think clubs would probably be willing to trade away something in the teens for our picks in the 20s anyway. So yeah, it would make it very hard to then get Swade and Huss on top of that. It's difficult. We're in a good position with our draft picks. We've got plenty. It's whether or not we're in a good enough position to keep till draft night, or if we need to move on top of that. And if we're moving on top of that, it's affecting our draft hand somewhere else, and that's why a Merrett trade would be great if it could get done. It's all connected. Merrett, the draft, the NGA boys, it's all connected. That's why there's been no movement anywhere in this trade period, because we're just waiting to see what happens. Even Fiorini, everything's connected. It's an interesting trade period for the Bombers. You know, we're heavily involved without having done anything yet at all. Expect some pick swaps, expect some, you know, player trades as well done in the coming days. I'm sure Fiorini will end up at the Bombers. But thank you guys. That is a Q&A done. Cheers for your questions. Very draft focused, and I love it. I was expecting all, you know, trade questions, but it gives me a chance to yap and nerd out about the draft. Big few days coming up. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm probably going to be having multiple videos out a day for parts of this week. Not Monday. I've got a busy day at work, but I have strategically taken the next few days after it off so I can nerd out at my desk and make videos for you lot. Cheers guys. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.